You're listening to Life Check Yourself with life coach, transformational leader, and dating and relationship badass, Marni Batista. Every week, you'll get the raw truth from top experts and real people on the important life and love issues you want to know about. So, if you're ready to life check yourself in your relationships, your career, and the areas of your life that matter most to you, and you're not afraid to be called out on your, stuff, then you're ready for what's next.
Life Check Yourself with Matt Hogan, how to get out of your head and into balance. Welcome to Life Check Yourself. Well, before we went on air, my guest, Matt Hogan, just told me I can ask him anything he wants. So stay tuned. It could get raw. I want to introduce you to Matt. He has had an endless fascination and devotion to the path of self-mastery and living an aligned life, from the lows of depression and even attempting suicide to riding the highs of being a corporate climber to exiting corporate life and traveling the world. Matt's own journey of mastering his life through a growing foundation and connection with his own inner guidance has forged a baseline for him that inspires him and propels him. And it's that exact journey that he works on with his clients. He works with like entrepreneurs, executives, change makers, and he just helps them bring more of their authentic self to their work, their leadership style, and their relationships. So I'm super glad that you were here.
Me too, Marni. I'm really looking forward to this.
So I'm going to just ask with a relationship question just right off the bat, and then we'll kind of get into the deeper part of it. Because and I love the transparency of even your bio, because I think that so many people, I'm not just going to say women, so many humans, they're so like looking, right, for this person that has X, Y, and Z. And I believe that because the way dating is right now, it's sort of like a buffet culture, right? Like, oh, I'll have a little taste of that. And I don't like that. And I'm allergic to that, but maybe I'll just have a bite, right? There's so many options that I think that it's really easy to discard really amazing people. And so I'm going to get super nosy and be like, so there you are, you've battled with depression, you were, doing the corporate thing, and then you're out there dating. What was that like for you? Like, how did you navigate that transparency of like getting to know someone and like saying like, yeah, I've had flaws, or this was happened in my past, or that, and how do you navigate that? And how does that work in a relationship so that someone doesn't rule out a person who has a past, right? Because I think everyone's like, I don't want that. And they didn't do that. And they were divorced and they don't talk to their parents and they're recovering from, drug addict, whatever it is. And I get all of it. But I just think it's a really powerful example of seeing someone as who they are now in their whole self. So I'm just curious.
There's many layers to that. I will say, though, just in the context of really finding that aligned partnership that so many of us desire, that partnership where it's like I wake up, the seeking is falling away. I'm not waking up going, oh, there could be someone better, or there could be this better thing, or bitterness about the person you're with. The thing I found most is when I could accept those things in myself, the people I tend to attract and want to be with me, they don't judge me for them to begin with.
Okay, so this is huge, because for those of you that are listening that are thinking, yeah, like I do that. I love, this is so Matt Hogan, right? Is flipping it back on yourself and being like, oh, wait, am I really picky about other people because I actually don't accept myself for my own flaws? Can you like elaborate on that a little bit more?
Yeah, for a long time, there's many different things I've done in my life that I had a period of time that I felt guilty for and that I held shame about. And one of the biggest ones being, the time when I attempted suicide. That was a really hard story for me to share. And over time, what I've realized is that what made it so gut-wrenching to share and what created that experience of fear of being rejected was because, truth be told, I was still really angry with myself that I ever did it. I still had never really processed the grief that I carried about the fact that I attempted to take my own life.
Yeah.
And I don't know how many people are there today, and I hope anyone listening is not. But, just even another level of think about in a relationship you've had that didn't go well. Maybe you didn't show up the way you'd like to, and the relationship ended. And so you still hold a bit of judgment toward yourself, a bit of guilt, and you haven't let yourself off the hook yet as a human. And imagine carrying that into a new relationship, and you're on pins and needles, or you're holding back. And what's interesting to see is when our last episode I was listening to is about the movement of energy and action. And
Hmm.
she was talking about emotions and things being able to move. If you're still holding that guilt, that shame, or anything from a previous relationship about yourself, you're carrying that stuck energy with you into your next relationship.
Yes.
And when it can flow, when it can move, when you can let it go, let it process out, it actually makes your relationship kind of open up because you've opened up. And that's what I've
Mm,
experienced as I have moved through my shame and guilt and depression around attempted suicide, my sister dying. I held a lot of survivor's guilt about that. Um, the near loss of my corporate career because I got myself in some trouble. Like there's many things that I continue to just carry on my back
right.
into new relationships. But the more I released them and came to accept where I've been, one, less I was actually likely to fall into those experiences again. And
Right.
two, I started attracting people that were very appreciative of me and grateful and didn't try to make me to be anyone else anyways.
And I think that's so important because I was just talking to a client actually, who was doing some like revealing work, and she was saying like, you know, I did this, and after I broke up with that guy, I was like kind of promiscuous, and I made it be okay because of this, that, and the other thing, and I did that, and she was like, oh, it's so like just saying all of it and like owning it and like being able to like start the forgiveness process is a really, really empowered thing. And I think that there are no rules for what things create shame or guilt, right? Like someone can sleep with lots of people and be like, woohoo, having the time of my life, right? And have none because that's just the process of life they're in, right? But I think what's really beautiful about what you're saying is that we have to have full self acceptance and forgiveness for all of the experiences that are making us who we are in this moment. And it's really this moment that kind of matters, right? Like this is the moment that's going to define the rest of our life. So let's talk about this idea then of, okay, so how do I take responsibility for that, for my past, for my present and my future, and let go of that shame? Like, do you have any sort of ways of thinking or any ideas about how do we take responsibility and start to heal that or let that go?
A question I sent a client that just renewed with me this morning was, what's it going to take for you to fall completely in love with your life?
Hmm.
We're, working on a lot of things for him, but ultimately it's what's going to help you fall in love with your life. And, one of the things that often comes up is this energy of being responsible for my feelings, being responsible for my actions and my experiences. It's not being responsible for other people's actions. It's not being responsible for what the world does or doesn't do, although we may want to control it to make us feel okay.
Right.
But what kind of like we were talking about for the call, it's about restoring balance in ourselves. And what I mean by balance is, and I like the way, and Luke talks about it, nature is always trying to balance itself.
Right.
If you look at the planet around us, it's trying to rebalance the systems so it functions in harmony. And and you can see it everywhere. Our bodies, because we are nature, does the same thing. We are always trying to rebalance, whether that is on a mental level, physical level, an emotional level, or
Right.
spiritual. And they
Yep.
all work together. And so for someone that is, as an example, still walking with a lot of entanglements to the past relationships, past experiences, loss in the family, really, really hard experiences, that is a drag on your energy. That
Yeah.
is a hold on your energy. And so to support your body and your spirit and everything wanting to do what it naturally wants to do, you have to first just stop and recognize that it's happening. We have to
Yeah.
stop and recognize that my energy just feels like it's dragged down. I feel like I can barely make it through the day, or I feel like I'm just, you know, running and running and running and never getting anywhere. And it's really being able to me, I look at responsibility as being able to take the responsibility to stop and say, This is where I'm at.
Yeah.
This is how I feel. This is what's driving me every day.
Yeah.
And I'm the one that's responsible for falling in love with myself so that I can attract into my life what I desire most.
Yeah, because like, everyone who listens to this show if you resonate with me, you're probably a recovering control freak or a perfectionist or whatever, right? And so the good news is you can be in control of yourself, right? Like that's like the best news ever. There is something you can be a control freak about, taking responsibility. And I think that it takes a lot of courage to have that awareness and to really listen to the whisper. Because, and by the way, when Matt was referring to Luke, he was referring to Luke Iorio, who we done like a couple episodes with. So you want to check that out. We talked a lot about change in our last episode and how you go through the gap of change. So this can be like, if we were pairing this like wine and a really great entree, this would be paired with the episode with Luke. But because so that what I want to talk about, this is so cool, is that if we think about, okay, so nature has balance and we're taking responsibility, then that means, at least for me, when I'm sort of in this process, is if I can have that awareness and then I can have this sort of idea, I call it like radical faith, like this belief, this trust that whatever it is that I'm going through, or this awareness, if I can be present to it and be in it fully and like lean into it, then that's the beginning of being in whatever, let's just use the seasons as a nature metaphor, right? Then I can be in the center, the season of winter, right? I can like go within and look and like kind of heal and do whatever it is that I need to do, because I know that if I do that, then I'm going to get to this, the plant the seeds in the summer. I think what happens is that for a lot of people, they're just so busy being busy. Like, why do you think people do that? Why do you think they are avoiding that moment of even saying I'm out of balance?
Well, let's look a different way with this. Can you tell me about a moment for you personally where the need to control, the distrust of the moment, the angst of here, there, this person, that thing, business, this fell away, and you were just here and fully relaxed and didn't feel like you were really like entangled with anything? Can you tell me a recent moment like
Oh
that?
my God. Yeah. So last weekend we went Nordic classic skiing out at this lake in Steamboat Steamboat, I think it's called Steamboat Lake. And there's like nobody there. And it's just literally gorgeous. The sun is shining. And I'm just like doing my little thing. I'm feeling the glide. And I decide, so usually when I'm out like in nature, I don't want to hear any music, Matt, because I just want to be like, I love the quiet, the nothingness of snow. But I decided to put some music on because there's like nobody around and had my AirPods anyway. And Tim McGraw song came up on my Spotify. And there's this line where he's like, the song Live Like You Were Dying. What would you do? And there's a line that says like, I'd go Rocky Mountain climbing. And I'm like, oh my God, like I'm fully like, what would you do if you could just fall so in love with your life? I just had that moment. And I was just like, I feel enlivened. I feel alive. I feel connected to nature. So like the big picture, all those things. That's a really long answer, but it just was such a like a moment of clear joy for me. And that felt very peaceful and fun as well.
There's a couple things I want to add in there to keep this fun step thread going. Is, one, you asked about how do we begin to take responsibility. Well, we have to first notice that there's something in our lives that we don't necessarily want, or there's an experience. And so, I know from just listening to some of your podcasts, this probably land is, there's this, we get told we need to just surrender and allow, or we need to go out and do and create. And so there's this energy of intention and there's this energy of allow.
Right.
How do they come together in a way?
People are like, how do
today,
I do
right
that?
now?
Yeah.
And, each is necessary. And what I mean by that is, first you have to set the intention of what is it that I want for my life? Like I can hear you say, I want a relationship. I can hear you say, I want more money. I want my business to run smooth. But when you back into that further, what is it really about? What's the feeling you're chasing? And maybe it's that feeling of the feeling you had when you were skiing. What was that feeling like for you?
Well, here, so I mean, I'm like, how far back do I go? Well, when we set out on this experiment, this radical living challenge, right? It was based on like looking at years of data on what were peak experiences in our life. When did we feel like most aligned and most resonant? And there was a massive theme of like being active in nature, right? Like nature was a huge piece of it, and being out in it and having that sort of experience. So like, if you look at that thread, it would make perfect sense, right? That I felt peace, I felt joy, I felt playful because I was like singing at the top of my lungs, like in an empty, an empty frozen lake. And so that felt like I was just being fully me, right? And so when I feel resonant or aligned or fully me, it feels like my life, this is like me being an expression of like my soul here on earth.
Something really feels important you said is it sounds like it's so much less about the actual activity itself, and it's about that inner resonance that says, this is me living me.
Yeah. Yeah. And I can have that moment if I'm like, so I finally have a kitchen. I had a kitchen in the RV, but it's a different experience, which is really weird because Jeremy and I would fight about the stupid RV blinds, because he's like privacy, privacy, privacy. And I'd be like, it's morning. Put those blinds up. Let's look at I want to have my coffee and look outside. He's like, no, the people can like look in. Right. And so here I'm like, woo, the blinds are up. So I have my coffee and I'm just sitting there. Right. And I'm just like being, and I'm like, yeah, like, right. And I think for me, the challenge is then how do we create those moments? How do we restore that balance? How do we do that? In the moments where, like the plumber's here fixing the hole that is in the ceiling because the pipe is leaking, right? Because that's what life is. Life is in a bunch of moments of like, doing, like you said, doing something that feels fun. And it's not a distraction, which we can talk about too.
So what we've talked about then at this point is it's one, know what you're feeling for. What is it you're actually trying to feel for?
Write that down, people. Know what
Because
you're feeling for. That's a hashtagable.
there is absolutely, and I think we can live in a culture where it can be easily said it's wrong to want. And I know that happens a lot for women too. It's like trying to smash down desires and things like
Yeah.
that. And that's just not healthy. Like
Yeah.
it's healthy and beautiful women to desire. Like it's let your desires fly. And can you find peace and balance in yourself as you open to your desires? And so this isn't a conversation of, oh, accept and shut down desires that you haven't fulfilled yet. It's what's the feeling that I want to walk with through my daily life that will actually invite in what I desire? And can I find that place in myself that opens me to it? And in this busy, very hyper productive world, that can be a really big challenge, especially if you're out running a big business that you're really passionate about. But what's that feeling? Is it a feeling of just being able to relax into the moment? Is it that feeling of being able to be in a partnership where you don't feel like you have to lead the partnership? What is the feeling? If we can trace back to the feeling you really want, then we can really look at, I like how you put in one of your other episodes, the space in between where you are versus who you're becoming.
Right.
What's the feeling of who you're becoming? Because when we know that, we can get clear on what's out of balance. And when we're clear on that, then you can decide, what does it look like for me to take responsibility of this?
I love that. I think that's so brilliant, because one thing that I've been talking about, and I'm writing a book. I think I've talked about that on the show, that it's coming out in 2025. Hay house, woohoo. But one of the things that I really realized for me, and I'd love your take on this too. First of all, don't you all love Matt Hogan's? You're going to find all about him. You could go in the show notes. You're going to be like Googling him and shit. He's amazing. Follow him on LinkedIn, the whole thing. But anyway, is this idea that, what for me, it was like, oh, like I have this stability, right? Like my stability or my balance was coming from external sources, right? In the form of like my house, right? That I lived in for 25 years in LA, right? And, like that. And I did this work to realize and thread back that that house meant security and stability and balance for me, because after I got divorced, when my life was like, blah, I had the house, right? So the house almost like raised me, right? Like I was single in it. Like I had my whole journey of like personal development. I fell in love with myself in the house. I created a family without a man in my house, right? So it makes sense why that was like, I can't leave my house, because if anything else goes wrong, I won't have my house. To being like, the journey is over this last however many months is starting to be like, how do I create that same feeling of like safety, security, stability, balance internally, so that whatever goes on externally, I have that home inside of me. And I think that's kind of what you're talking about, is how do I find that space inside of me? And then so I'm decorating my home inside of me. What do I want it to feel like? What do I want it to be like? What was a moment for you? I'm curious, where you had like the clarity of like, this is what I was attributing my sense of safety or groundedness to, that was external. And then what happened once you figured out like how to create that internally?
But there was something beautiful you said. I think we could trace back a little further to support everyone listening. And you were talking about ultimately, how do you decorate the inside house that is you? And you said a few things. You said stability, and what were the other ones?
I think I said like balance. I was using that word balance and security, safety.
I wonder for you, what does it feel like to experience stability?
Yeah. So by the way, you must have listened to an episode where I can't remember who it was like coaching me. It was what's her name? It was Shoshana. Do you remember that was the episode you're talking about,
I
right?
believe so, yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, I'm getting some free coaching again. This is amazing. Okay. What was the question? I love
How,
Matt. Wait,
how
what
do,
is it? How do I restore?
how do you experience stability in your body and inside of yourself?
Oh, how do I experience it? Well, I think there's a sense of peace, but also like a key piece of me is fun. Like for me, playfulness. So I'm like as much like, oh, I feel so peaceful. Like I'm just it's so beautiful. Right. And then also my like zone is like, I'm just fun and playful.
Are you open to go a little bit deeper into this?
Sure, Matt Hogan.
So that experience of peace, that experience of playfulness, we trace it back even further inside of you. What's that experience like in your body and your mind?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And I think this is why I trying to teach people all the time that you have to be able to feel it as well as think it. So notice that he asked me like, not what do you think, but he was like in your body, in your mind, because if you've been listening to this show for any amount of time, we are always talking about having a somatized experience of our life, like where we're not just living from our neck up. So note, you want to have both access to both. So it feels like in my body, like light, and it feels like just ease. It feels a sense of like lightness, relaxed, and even relaxed, even if I'm like moving. By the way, it's not like I'm just sitting or meditating. And then in my mind, I think it's really like, which is really interesting. Like it's the right amount of like intellectually like stimulated, challenged, right? Like my environment is like, feels like spacious. So I feel like in my mind, I have space. It's not like cluttered, or I'm like thinking about 14,000 things, right? So there's that. I feel very much in my mind, like a sense of just really being present. So I'm not in the past, I'm not in the future, I'm just being where I am. And I really feel this sense of freedom in my mind. And that was reflected in how I describe my body. But in my mind, it's sort of like, I'm free to just be really who I am in that most authentic way in that moment, right? So I have like freedom. I'm free from the shoulds, from the have tos, from what other people think. I probably could go on, but that's kind of it in a high level.
Let's take this. Let's have some more fun with it. When you experience the energy and the feeling, and we keep noting that the feeling
Yes.
of stability in your body, there's that relaxation. There's many more things you said as well.
Yeah.
and your body felt free. And in your mind, it doesn't feel cluttered. It sounds like it feels clear. There's freedom. You
Yep.
know, there's so often that we're conditioned to believe that it has to feel messy for us to get things done out here and get the results. You run a
Right.
big business, you're building a big business, and you have all these things, you have kids, whatever. I'm curious for you, when you're experiencing stability, what kind of results happen in your life around you?
Well, I'm curious, stability. Well, I'm super. I think when I'm in a space of being, I'm able to be more, create more. Right. So, but it doesn't feel like we talk about on this show all the time about how like the busyness of being busy, just like frenetic, but we're experiencing a lot of stress, worry, anxiety. It feels harder to create whatever it is we need to create. And as busy people who listen to this show, like that's why at the end you're like of the day, you're just like wasted, right? So I think for me, like I can be in a creative space or I can generate things that feel resonant or aligned and it feels easy. It's not like taking like, oh my God, this was like a have to energy. Does that make sense?
Yeah. It's like I'm present, I'm here, and you are more present and able to take the action that aligns for you rather than being pulled by your mind and that feeling of needing to be busy.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Or just getting shit done. Okay. I want you to answer my question that I asked
Okay.
you, Matt.
Okay.
I want to know for you. I want to know for you, what does that feel like for you? What was it like before and what was your moment? And then how does it feel now?
Well, because I know there's a lot of brilliant minds listening to this, I want to say one thing before I answer that.
Yeah, for sure.
This feeling of stability is one pathway of multiple that really support us to feel grounded and connected into our lives, that we can actualize both not only like the business and that desire for growth, but we can also actualize our desired relationships too. So stability and that feeling of it is a key ingredient of the multiple that serves that. And so finding our way back to that is really important. And then a piece that may feel a bit informational, but I would say write it down, is our mind will do everything to try to help us meet a deeper need to feel stability. And so when your mind
Mm,
says, I want this, your mind says, I want that, your mind says, it wants this. It is if trying to fulfill a deeper need of yours. And that could be a need for connection. It could be a need for intimacy, a need for love, a need for safety. And so notice what your mind's doing as a strategizer to try to meet a deeper need.
that's so
Which is,
great. I love that.
yeah. For me, stability is something that I experience it as my mind's pretty quiet. There's thoughts, but
Yeah.
it's not frantic. It's not catastrophizing about the future. I tend to be more worried about the future than less stuck to the past. Um, but I really can just sit here and be in this conversation with you. And I feel like I'm in my body. I can feel my feet on the floor. I feel like I'm talking to you. I'm not disconnected from my breath. And I'm actually able to be here without being somewhere else. And for me, it feels kind of like just, oh, I know it's used so much, but it really is like flow.
Yeah.
It's
Right.
I don't feel like my emotions are pulling me. I don't feel like I'm like trying to hold back from you. Like, what is she going to think about me? And it's a very calm feeling. And yet, what I have found, and this is kind of where I'm at with my journey personally, is as I feel that stability in myself increasingly, that is where we move from the mentalization of allowing and surrendering, and we actually start to be able to let the emotion of joy show up. We become
Mm.
able to let the
Mhm.
experience of love just show up, because we can't think ourselves into joy. We can't think ourselves into love. We have to literally feel it. And to really feel those energies and those deeper emotions, we have to feel this sense of stability in our bodies.
Yeah. And I think when you were talking, I was just imagining how women could feel going on, dating from that space, right? Or showing up for a really important conversation with someone at work, right? Or having a conversation with a kid or a friend, right? Where we just feel we're so present and we're so in that flow. And then I think the challenge and what we're really always talking about on this show then is And so, how do I do that? How do I practice that and get so familiar with that when things take me out of flow, right? Or there's a stressor situation, right? Or whatever it is, how can I in the work that you talk about, like, how can I then restore that stability? How can I bring myself back to being present, to being my authentic self, and really, showing up for myself and people in my life in a way that feels really, really aligned. So let me ask you this. So what do you think that people have to let go of to be able to start to make these shifts in their life?
I'm often hesitant to use the language of let go of because it becomes a mental concept,
Okay.
and it's not always useful
Okay.
because we can't think our way into letting go of things. Like Albert
True.
Einstein's quote goes, "You can't think your way out of the problem with the same thing you created it with,
Yeah.
or at least." And so I really look at it more to not what do I need to let go of, what do I need to become present to?
Cool. I love that.
And what I mean by that is, can I slow down long enough to let myself feel what's really happening? Can I let myself slow down long enough to really look at how my mind is operating? Can I slow down long enough to actually notice, what does it feel like to be in my belly?
Mm,
What does it feel like to be in my chest? What do my legs feel like? Can we slow down long enough to feel what is actually present for us right now? Our mind is always constantly going about something, but our body always speaks the truth of right now. So, can we get present to what's here now? Because when we're talking about, oh, I want this business, I want this partnership, we're not present. That's not what's here. Your partnership, if you don't have a partnership right now,
yep.
you're not here if you're focused on it. So, can you come back here in a way that you can feel and navigate what's happening inside of you at the moment? And this is a key piece and a big thing that like Luke and I focus on with people is, and can you find in that moment that still small voice that I call your inner teacher, your inner guidance, you may call it your intuition or your soul,
Yep.
and hear that voice in me that's probably been beckoning for some time, and hear what it has to tell me.
Mm-hmm.
I like to, I'm sure many people listening to this are familiar with the book Crucial Conversations.
Mm-hmm.
Something I take my clients through is, great, you know how to have a crucial conversation with your team and people around you. What's the crucial conversation you need to have with yourself?
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah. I think that's kind of when I was saying about being present, right? And having clarity, is that it's like for me anyway, there's like a funnel, like from like my brain has to process, right? Like as human, right? So it's like, oh, I can hear it. I know it's my truth. I know that I'm not having self-doubt, or what, is it the dark side? Is it the inner it's my truth. And then being able to like, kind of like bring that up and like express, right? And the last thing I want to talk about here is, because I think this is people also interestingly get a little stuck, is sometimes we hear that voice, but we squish it down, we rationalize it away, right? We leave the present, we go like to the future or the past, and we don't acknowledge or act on or get into action or be courageous around some of those whispers. So what can someone do to start to heed the whisper, heed the voice of their soul or their knowing or their intuition?
Well, if they can hear it, and there's a part of them that knows they're hearing it, they may not trust it, they can hear it. It's a choice. Am I willing to give this a try? Am I willing to take this one small step that feels like maybe coming from a deeper place in me that I've not been listening to? That's a piece of taking responsibility too. It's like any skill. We have to cultivate that connection with that part of
Mm-hmm.
ourselves.
Yep.
And one thing that really helped me in my life, and I don't wish this on anyone, is I was fortunate enough, and this may sound weird, but when I attempted suicide, I heard it loud and clear for the first time ever, and it said, "You are not going to die like this." And it literally has been something that really opened up in me because of that experience. That said, most of us haven't attempted to take their life. And so we've just attempted to build good lives and have good relationships, have good money, things like that. But along the way, that voice has been there. And so, one, are people able to discern the difference between the voice of their mind and the voice of their inner guidance? I would start
Yeah.
there.
Yep.
Like if you have a pen and a piece of paper in front of you right now, write a T chart down your page. If you're listening, now you know how to make a T chart,
Yep.
and put on one side, my mind sounds like, and just write all the things that your mind sounds like so you're really clear on when it's speaking. My inner guidance sounds like on the other side, and see what you notice. For some
Yeah.
people, they experience that as a voice. For me, I hear my inner guidance come up from my lower belly. Like
Yeah.
if I ask a question and I look down, I can hear the answer like come up my body. It's a really interesting thing.
That's so amazing. I love
Rather
that.
than if I look up and I'm looking up like here in the camera and I ask the question, I can literally hear it come from my head versus my body. So I hear it through my body. I know
Yeah.
some people, they get pictures.
Yeah.
And I know some people that they just get a feeling that they can know the answer through the feeling. And so what is your inner guidance sound like?
I love that. That's so cool. Mine's like in my heart.
Say
And
more.
then, well, I know like when I have like I know that when I ask a question and I'll just say information comes in, right? The voice of the universe, God, my soul, whatever it is. I totally just feel like in my heart, like that, like, truth, like fist pump my heart. Like, yes, and so it's funny for me. I'm like, you're in your belly. I'm like in my solar plexus.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, hey, this feels like truth.
I have a beautiful question for you, Marni, is because you asked about how to support people with this, how they can kind of walk this path. And I know you've been walking the path with your inner guidance for a long time. What helps you cultivate that connection with your own inner guidance?
Oh, well, I mean, I have to have stillness. I have to have stillness practice. Right. So, well, there's a couple things. I think one of the things that we teach, and this is really something that's a cornerstone of the book of these 7 spiritual questions that we ask ourselves to find a meaningful life. And one is, did I seek wisdom? And in order to seek wisdom of our inner guidance, as you call it, we have to ask what wisdom seeking questions, not like, why did this happen to me? Right. Or, what do I do to make this go away? Or, which career should I take? Right. Or should I date that guy or should I, boot him? Right. It's like the question I asked you when I said, what do you need to let go? And you're like, oh, what do you need to be present to? Right. Wisdom seeking questions. So the number one thing is I want to make sure that I'm asking a question that is going to give me like it's on the right freeway to my inner guidance. Because if I ask a question that's entered to my mind, I'm going to get, I'm going to end up out of gas at like a really shitty rest stop.
What helps you know the difference between a question that's authentic to your heart and your deeper sense of self versus your mind?
Well, number one is I can actually answer the question. Why is this happening to me? Or, which career should I take? Or should I date that guy? Is like, I don't know. Let me make a list of things, right? It's like so far outside of me, right? There is no right answer, right? That doesn't resonate or connect because it is very much out of my control. And I can't answer that question. I don't have the information to even answer that question. So when I ask a question like, what do I need to be present to X, Y, or Z? I mean, that just it's like internal, right? It's a really powerful question. So I have to ask a wisdom seeking question. And then the other thing is I have to create time to listen. Like you said, slowing down, and so, because if I'm just rushing around and it like, this is my pet peeve. I wonder if it's yours. When people are like, I'm like, did you do that meditation? Did you do tapping? Did you sit and like ask, take 5 minutes and listen? I wanted to, but I had to get up early and my cat was meowing and then I had to go to this and I had to do lunch. And by the time and it was like, the answer is no. Right. Or, I can't find a spot or I can't, whatever it is, or I'll be like, oh, well, maybe you need to do it while you're walking or, like find your way.
Yeah.
And people get too busy to do that. And that's my pet peeve. Because how can you do any of this stuff if you don't slow down enough to listen?
I'm going to offer a different angle. It's, yes, in the physical world, we're busy, but often the reality is we're too damn afraid to slow down and look at ourselves.
Yeah, of course, for sure. Right. Yeah.
And,
Yes.
and,
Yes.
and for many reasons, it makes sense. And I'm not going to go into all the reasons why it makes sense that we're afraid, but it can be safe. We can be safe to slow down and take a look. It may be scary. It may be hard to start, but that voice inside of you that feels like life is crushing you, that feels like you're exhausted, that you're unliving your full potential, that you're not experiencing the love you desire, that voice is there for a reason. Your desires are there for a reason. They're not lies.
Yes.
Don't ignore them, and don't let the fear keep you going and going and going so you get to the end of your life and you go, what the hell did I not do? And so,
Yeah.
are you willing to give yourself 5 minutes first, 10 minutes? Are you willing to ask yourself, what do I need to be present to? Are you willing to look at all the ways you let the world tell you what is right for you versus willing to take a look for yourself?
Amen. That's amazing. I wish we had, well, we'll have to come back because we could talk for hours. You could teach for hours. You're so wise and so great. Like talking to you is like, so I've played pickleball like 5 times in my life. Have you ever played pickleball?
I haven't.
Okay. So
I just love the name. That's why I'm laughing.
I know. So pickleball for me is like, I'm not like super, like it's not great, but when I play a game, I never play to win. I just play to play. Right. And so I'm not trying to I'm not trying to win, right? I'm not doing the hardest shot. And so when we have a conversation, I just love it because it's just like the joy of the conversation is so like fun and rewarding, like that. It's just a blessing to do this. And the fact that we created a podcast out of it, bonus points, right? Right. It's like, oh, I got a little workout in from playing pickleball. Awesome. But I sure had fun playing. So I just really appreciate that you came to the court to play today because you're super, super wise. Ladies, make sure that you check out the show notes because that's where you can find out more information about Matt Hogan, matthoganworldwide.com. He has a free gift. He's got a workbook, a guided workbook to help you get clarity and alignment. So that's super fun. And if you do go find him like on LinkedIn, he's always doing really cool posts and he's got great videos and he's just a wise dude and he talks really calming. And so even if you just listen to this podcast again, you'll probably slow down. Which is beautiful and amazing. So thank you. And ladies, as always, don't forget to subscribe, share this. You can find out more about us and get more content on Instagram at Dating with Dignity. You can find me doing TikTok videos at Marni Batista. And whatever you do today, make sure you life check yourself. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye. Hey, thanks for tuning into today's show. So if being in an intimate relationship in which you feel 100% seen, heard, and accepted by a high caliber man is a priority for you right now, and you're interested in seeing if you're a fit for working with me and my team at Dating with Dignity, here's what I want you to do. Just head over to DWD VIP, that's D as in dating, W, D as in dating, VIP.com, and book a call to speak with my team. We'll get on the phone with you for about 60 minutes and you'll get crystal clear on what's stopping you from finding true love right now. We'll also take a look at what you want to create, what you want your whole life to look like when you're able to finally be fully expressed as a woman in a healthy relationship with an incredible guy. And if we can help you get from where you are right now to where you want to be, we will show you the fastest path possible that makes sense for you to do that. We help smart, successful women all over the world solve this one missing piece in their life so they can finally have it all. So to see if we can help you do the same thing, head over to DWDVIP.com. I'm Marni Batista, and let's talk soon.